Okay. Yeah.
I'm entering on the cell phone simultaneously.
Okay. All right. No, that's fine. So that we see what happens.
The icon is our
Yes. Naganja. Naganja. Okay. Yes, bonus nazo zombini. Zikhona. There you go. There you go. Can you see me? Can you hear me?
I can see you and I can hear you on the phone. So I think let me switch off the laptop. Should I switch it off?
Yeah. Okay. If you think it's gonna be, if
So
it cause challenges,
I'm
you
going
can be better and so on.
to leave the studio on the laptop,
or you can get Mameka if she's around to reconnect on the computer, but it seems to be okay. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
You think it's gonna cause the challenges?
It could be. Okay, sure.
So you can charge it.
Okay, sure. There you go. All right. To those people that have joined us, welcome. I can see the people are beginning to join. And I'd like to really welcome you again today to our program. I can see Takalo Nemauluma. I hope I'm spelling your surname correctly, my brother or my sister. Greetings once more. Greetings to you too. Appreciate your time and presence here. And we appreciate that. We appreciate the people that have joined us. This is the place to be on a Sunday afternoon, just before you start winding down with the soccer match, or after you've had Sunday lunch and you are just taking your dessert. All right, welcome. I see that Udumisa Mhlamo is also here. Good to see you, Majens Dumza. Our guest was here just now. He just lost connection. I think he's going to rejoin. It's not panic. We just relaxing. It's a Sunday afternoon. You know, there's a lot going on in the country. There's scares about COVID. Oh man, there's a lot about that that's happening. We're scared about the potential and possible lockdown. People are just frustrated. So let's just spend time, just those of us who can, just to relax and just talk about things that are going to make us grow and develop as human beings in all areas of our lives. You talk about the spirituality or your spiritual growth. You talk about personal growth. You talk about in whatever area, families, finances, and all of that. We've got to grow in all areas of our lives. All right. So what I'm going to do, I think Xolisa is trying. I think there are problems there where he is with the connectivity. All right. Oh, great. Thank you to hear that I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I'm happy. Thank you so much. Yes, I remember now. When you said Dakalo, and I remember your days at your UCT. I met another of your friends at Sentin church last week, last Sabbath, and I remembered those days when people like you, the young men from Botswana, and other ladies, Akoliwe Fairchild and others, you guys were really, really doing great in leading STASM at UCT. I see that Gilbert Matiti has joined us as well. Good to see you, Plegas. I was with your family digitally in your church on Friday evening, and I saw Tebu and Sister Wak. Very excited young people. Good to see you. All right. What I'm going to do, I'm going to try and phone Xolisa and just check what he's struggling with. All right. So just, okay. Okay, there you go. He was, it was saying here the device is not connected, but here it's coming. We live in a time when we're dependent so much on technology these days. We just need to be patient with each other and with the technology. There you go. There he is. Can you see me now? Can you hear me, my brother? Andiva, can you hear me?
I can see you, but I cannot hear you. Hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you quite well.
You can hear me,
see
hey?
you. I can hear. Yes, I can hear you. When I?
Yes, I can hear you. Wonderful. I can hear you as well. I can hear you as well.
Good. Okay. All right. All right. All right. That's good. I think we'll keep moving. I think we're going to keep moving because
yes.
Technology is not always our friend. It makes things easy when it works, and it's a challenge when it doesn't work. But there's always a way forward, and so we're going to focus on the way forward at this moment. Let me just say again, welcome to our viewers. Welcome. I see you. Some of you are already writing notes just to appreciate our time together. And I did indicate that this is a moment of insight and growth. That's what we are here to do, is to plant a seed in someone's mind. Someone who may be feeling like, hey, I'm stuck. We want to plant a seed to say that, listen, with God on your side, with hard work, with opening your mind and just listening to what other people are saying, reading books and doing all those things, there's nothing that's impossible, no matter where we are. And so it's really, really a great privilege for me to have you as viewers out there. And I know that some of you are traveling, it's a weekend. Some of you are watching in cars on your phone, and some of you you will watch these during the course of this week. It doesn't matter. What matters is that we're here now, and we're here to really create a transformation in our mindset, and to say to us, wherever you are in your career, wherever you are, wherever we are, we can always grow up, and so on. And so, as you know, today we're talking about a journey of self-discovery. No, I'm making a mistake. A journey of self-rediscovery. Okay, we're going to hear what the difference is today. Yes, a journey of self-rediscovery. That's what we are talking about today. How do we discover and develop ourselves, especially as Black people in order to leave an enduring legacy? How do we do that? How do we transition from just being satisfied with the trappings of what we call success? Better salary, better, higher position, material things, to a life of significance and impact. How do we make that transition? Because so many people are trapped within this dynamic and within this terrain of only just acquiring these things. And not to say that these things are bad, but how do we transition and transcend those so that we can be people who are significant, who leave significance and impact, who leave a legacy? We have seen how money and what money does to people who have not really discovered who they are and what their purpose is. I used to watch these programs when I Xolisa, of these people that won so much money during in these competitions, and now they no longer have it,
the lottery,
because their mindset was not prepared to receive so much money. And so today, friends, to provide a perspective on these issues, I have a pleasure to host a forward-looking man who's serious about this topic. Here I'm talking about Xolisa Mayoyo. He is an author. He's a blogger. I've read a number of your blogs, sir. He has a lot of experience in the financial services sector. As I said, an author, a business developer, a development consultant, and excuse me, entrepreneur. He is passionate about financial literacy, and we need that. And he's also passionate about personal development of many members of our society who have little access to these kinds of things. And so he has published a book which is called Perspective. And in this book, he narrates his personal journey of self-rediscovery with the specific goal of understanding thoroughly who he is and how he adds value to the greater human good. And so I'd like to welcome you, Xolisa, and please say hi to our viewers.
Well, finally, good afternoon, Mr. Kulati. Thank you so much for having me on your platform. I sincerely appreciate being here. Yes. Also, I thank your viewers who are joining us today. Thank you guys for welcoming me in your space as well.
It's a pleasure, man. It's a pleasure. I've always followed you from a distance, and as well as your wife. I've read her book, and I think you played a role in that book, Usarahina. And I really watched some of the YouTube videos that you guys put out. It's a tremendous beauty to see such a well-functioning family. And on this platform, we also are interested in really empowering families to empower one another. So for that, I'd like to honor you both and to appreciate the service that you're making to humanity.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure, man. I see that my wife is trying to get hold of me. She's not here. I hope nothing is serious. If it is serious, she will phone the children. They are here. All right. So as we start on this, I just want to say that the purpose of this is to inspire, is to inform, is to really educate and motivate people, especially young Black people, with this idea that everything is possible. And we do this by really profiling and traversing the lives of people, of ordinary people like you and me who grew up in similar circumstances. But today they are making an impact in one way or the other. And these are people that I respect and value contribution to me as a person. And so Xolisa is one such person. As I said to you, whatever comes out of his pen, at least on his Facebook posts and his blogs, it's been and on his website, it's really, really something that, and today I thought, man, let's talk about him. Xolisa, we've talked a bit about those kinds of things. Can you just tell us a bit more about you, where you're from, and just your schooling, and how did you come up as you were growing up?
Okay. Right. So Xolisa Mayoyo is a 30-something years young African man who is married to a beautiful young lady called Sarahina Mayoyo, and who's a father to an even more beautiful younger lady named Amioli Mayoyo. Growing up, the first school I went to, I say again?
Did you say Amioli?
Amioli, yes, sir. Amioli Mayoyo.
Okay.
That's yes. That's yes. Yes. Her full name is Amioli Amadingakatiko. So yes, we were blessed, to have her in our life. That's a story, for another day, the role she played in our life growing up as a young couple, Nano Sarahina. Schooling, the first school I went to was Sese to Lower Primary School. It's literally across the road from my parents' home. So naturally, that would have been the first school I would have gone to in the village of Kwalini, just behind Ekinsberg, Ekot. I did the grade 1 all the way up to grade 6. And then my parents at the time realized that, I had a keen interest in academic education and had quite a knack for it because of the results that I would bring home. And also at home, I spent a lot of time reading. I mean, the story of me starting school in the first place is comical on its own, because I started school at the age of 5. And how this came about was my mother being a teacher at the time, and she was teaching grade 3 at the time. After being taken out from creche at about 12 o'clock perhaps, then I would be brought to the school, but I would spend time with the grade 1ers at the school. And as they would be convening their lesson, I would also be part of that lesson. And from time to time, the grade 1 teacher would ask me to read or would ask me to solve a situation that is put on the board. And a week later, I think the teachers started talking to one another, saying, Uguti, this guy is ready. I don't know what we're waiting for. Let's just enroll him. And a week or 2 or so later, I was bought uniform and I was enrolled abruptly that way. So yes, that's how I began. I began school that way. I began my grade 1 that way. And I went from grade 1 to grade 6 in the school. Obviously, that would have been in my, immediate environment. After that, my parents, I think they wanted to see if I can, go to places where I can receive a bit of a challenge. Perhaps it was too easy where I was in the beginning. So they sent me to Esiavuya Higher Primary School, which is at NU 14 Mdantsane. Then I did my grade 7 there. I did my grade 7 there at NU 14 Mdantsane at Siavuya Higher Primary. And the result came confirming what had always been the case throughout, my school career, until then. And I suppose then that kind of winning, pushes people to go further. So my parents said, okay, now that we see that you can do better in an environment that's not so immediate to you, let's now take you, to better institutions. This is when I now began to start, going to school with other races, and entered what was referred to then as the Model C schools. That's when I went to Chinese High. The school was called Chinese High. And because obviously I was coming from a black, as it were, I was then asked to repeat, grade 7. Because
was it a Chinese school?
It was a Chinese school in Port Elizabeth, now in the suburbs of Port Elizabeth in Kabiga Park. But it was ran in English, but it was mostly Chinese people that were. But the teachers, were different races depending on what it was that you were being taught. So I spent 1 year with the guys at Chinese High in Port Elizabeth, repeating my grade 7 to convince now the higher standard that perhaps I was deserving of the grade. then thereafter, high school began, and I went to a school called Strelitzia High School. And this school was now accepting, Black entrants for the very first time in 1994, after, the democracy, of our country and our republic. So I then did grade 8 all the way up to grade 12 in Strelitzia High School. Is found. Say again, sir.
Where was this? Which city or town was it?
Cape Town. This is now in Uitenhage, at Tinaga.
Okay. All right.
Yes. This is in the suburbs of Uitenhage, and it's a boarding school. So I would spend 5 years of my high school in that boarding school, all the way from grade 8 to grade 12, and matriculated in 1999, at the end of 1999. After 1999, obviously now this is where I had the choice as to where I would be doing my further schooling, my tertiary, my higher education schooling. And obviously being a young man at that time who was very eager to be independent, I went as far as possible, from my family and from my hometown, and came to Johannesburg. And enrolled at Nikon Witwatersrand at that time, PWR, it was referred to at that time, on Bunting Road campus near the SABC studios. That is where I would now spend 3 years of completing a diploma in business management. Yes, so that is pretty much my schooling before I started working. Immediately after that 3 years diploma at TWR, I would then start working and begin my career in financial services.
Okay. Wow. That's interesting. And so what drew you to business or to finance? Did you have the knack of it when you were still younger? Or was it something that you saw in your family or influenced by someone?
So I think this is something that I always had a knack for, because my father wasn't a businessman. My father was a salesman in a retail store, in retail stores. And he would have influenced me in terms of discipline. He would have influenced me in terms of, earning your own living. He would have influenced me in terms of being loyal to an organization when you're working for them and so on. Not so much, in terms of business. And my mother was, a teacher. So there too, she wouldn't be the person who would have really influenced me to have a knack for business. I think what influenced me when I was much younger was my situation. What influenced me when I was much younger was my circumstances. When we're born into this world, we don't choose who gives birth to us. We don't choose where they are. We don't choose what lifestyle they lead. We don't choose their socio-economic status. We are born, into, the world that we find ourselves in by virtue of the vehicles that have, carried us into this world.
Brought us here, yes.
So
put it so well.
So I think my circumstances at that time were really the drive for me to look forward to more. I was always that child who always looked forward to more, who always understood there always could be more than what was readily available. So not that I was not content, with the fact that my parents were both employed, and that both my parents, earned a living and they were able to support us as their children. I think even they raised me to dream. They raised me to think more. They raised me to see more. Even if you look at my schooling career, as I explained it to you earlier, it was them who would push me from the beginning and say, you can do more, you can do better. And when they could see that indeed I have done better and I have done more, then they'd create an environment that would be conducive for me to learn and research and expand my horizons and expand my thinking and my viewing of what life is about. So I'd say what really drove me, I was like this even when I was 5 or 6 years old. I was looking at what else was available out there, and seeing myself as part of those who are experiencing what is there to be, experienced out there. So what drove me to business, I think, was always the nature of dreaming, the nature of understanding that there's more to life than what's readily available in front of me at the time.
I think you were one of the lucky ones, because many people don't know, don't have a clarity in their mind when they were still very young. But you seem to have found your niche at a very young age. And talking about a niche, you are into business development and entrepreneurship. Can you just tell us a bit more about that, including briefly about some of the years in the financial services industry where you were working?
Yes. Okay. Yes. All right. So then I'll carry on. After those 3 years getting my diploma in business management and learning all of what I needed to learn academically in terms of business, I was fortunate, to on the third year of the course, the institution worked hard to make sure that we were employed as third-year students, because part of the third-year syllabus or curriculum is for you to be employed in a real job situation in South Africa. And that's part of the marks that you get on your second semester of the third year, is being employed, and all the stuff that they've taught you in the 2.5 years is you applying them. So I was fortunate in that on my third year of schooling, I already had a job which was placed by the institution that I was studying under. And I really started from the bottom. I mean, I was working at Woolworths Eastgate at the tills with the green jersey, with the green jersey, and punching there at the tills, merchandising stock on the floor, and all of that. And I mean, I'd take a taxi from Res, and go to work and then come back to Res, so already while I was in my third year, I was experiencing a bit of what my post-school life is going to be like when I'm now on my own, earning my own living, paying for my own place. So during the third year, I began, working there. Then thereafter, I sourced my own, employment after that, and got a job elsewhere where the pay was better. But the art of and the skill of selling, I was already learning, in these retail stores. I worked for the Levi's stores in the Cresta Mall. This is where I begin my interaction with clients and customers, learning how to, read a customer and see what it is that they're looking for, and being able to select a product that's suitable for them, and be able to sell it to them, and get them to spend money on it and walk away satisfied after that. So I would begin learning these subtle and soft skills of dealing with a client, of doing a needs analysis through clothing, seeing what the client is needing, seeing what the client is looking for, seeing how I can match which product is most suitable. Is it the 501G? Is it the 544 with the bootleg at the bottom? Which one is going to give you this feeling that you are looking for? Looking also at the shape of your body, which one is going to bring you out properly? By the time you walked out of that store, you were happy, to have paid that 500 rand for that pair of jeans, because you've figured it. I've asked you to come out of the change room. I've asked you to do the whole twirl, go around, let me see you. Then I'll talk about how you're going to be at that next party or at that next place where you're going to be. So I would have learned the skill from there.
Wow. Now we know.
Then thereafter, from thereafter, the skill would then develop, because I would then enter the financial services industry. I entered in 2003. After basically the Levi
just before you move to that, because I think if we were talking about Twitter, I would say there are tweetable moments that are always, because the young people are going to listen to this thing. But what I think came out very, very, very powerfully in what you were saying is that you started off at the lowest level. And as you grew up, you picked up all these skills, right up to a point where you can actually sell and deal with the person and change the person's perspective about your product. So that's an amazing thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I totally agree. I mean, had it not been for, me taking a taxi from Auckland Park to North, from North to Eastgate, and then at night after 9 o'clock when the shift ends at Woolworths, taking the very two same taxis back, while other students were, having a good time probably at that time, or doing things that were instantly gratifying. And I was, investing in my future at that time by working at the very same time while I'm studying. I think that I was fortunate. I was fortunate to have been exposed to that kind of opportunity, and the hustle mentality then would develop from there, where I would recognize Uguti. I don't have my mother and a father in Johannesburg. I've come to Johannesburg to fend for myself, to get educated and to get a career for myself that can propel me, forward and advance me in terms of the dreams and the visions I had concerning my life, at a later stage. So I agree with your point. The investments we make today, we're going to obviously cash out on 5 years from now. So it's important for us to start as early as possible so that we can reap from what we have sown much earlier on, in our journeys of progress. So I'm agreeing with you there. You're right on the money there. And also, when I then sourced my own job after that, after the school had given me a job, now I could sit in interviews and I could sit in front of people who were prospective employers, and I could sell myself now because I had a bit of experience in the workplace. And I could also even, demand a slightly higher pay than what I was getting previously because I now had a bit of experience. And I could say, this is what I can do for you, and this is what I can do in terms of moving your merchandise and making sure that people buy. Because it was not only the theory which I had access to through the school, but also now the experience that I had now started gaining, from working. And from the Levi's job, where I learned to when I learned to sell face to face, and learned to, read the customer and have a needs analysis so that I can present a product that's suitable and I can leave a client that's satisfied, that's happy to spend money on a product, but also having been imparted value on. That's when I realized, okay, fine, it's time for me to go further. And that's when I applied at Teleshow Investment Holdings. And that was my first real job, working in the center, selling insurance over the phone.
Okay. Wow. All right. Thank you. I think we are there now. I can see that Pastor Arnold is joined us. I see Ulizo Kangule. I see Uli Nkabulo Nkululo Mpala. Good to see you guys. So much grateful to have you. We have started with our journey for those of people who've just joined us with Xolisa, young boy who grew up and went to school early and then moved on and started getting all these opportunities. And it seems like, Xolani, you were really aware and conscious as you were growing, and you used that consciousness and that awareness to really build a solid foundation for your future. And so now where we are is now we have moved from the retail industry and so on, the clothing and so on, but now you've moved towards the financial services industry, and you spent a whole lot of your time there, which is and you just talk about the passion that you have for financial literacy, and where is that coming from? What are the issues that we must take into consideration before we move deeper into this subject? Because I want to talk about your passion as well, because you're passionate about that, especially for us as Black people. Sometimes we get into debt and we want to buy things we cannot afford. Can you just share a bit more about financial stewardship and literacy?
Correct, with pleasure. So I think I'll carry it on from the story. So when I started in financial services, I mean, I was 20 years old. I remember, you know, I was in the call center at Teleshore when Dial Direct came out. We're the first people who were hired to take the calls and to start selling that product to the market. It was a very interesting product. It was an exciting product. It came with all of these nice you know, benefits, and it came with cashback bonuses. It came with all sorts of things. And there I was, you know, 20 years old. I remember my 21st birthday. I was working a double shift during my 21st birthday. So when you were working a double shift, you'd start from 8 o'clock in the morning to about 4:30. And then from 4:30 to 5 o'clock, you'd have a little break so that you can start from 5 to about 9 o'clock in the evening. That's how I spent my 21st birthday. My 21st birthday was spent with me working hard from 8 to 4:30. Then 4:30, I took myself out and had a little dinner for myself with a little cupcake there and a candle. And I sang myself happy birthday. And I went back to the call center at 5 o'clock and worked up until 9 o'clock. Because as we've been saying earlier, if you're a person who dreams, if you're a person who's got a vision, if you're a person who knows that they belong somewhere, then you know that nobody else is going to take you there but yourself. So I started then, you know, at the age of 20 in the financial services industry. And at that time, as much as I was perhaps fortunate to have started earlier, I was still quite young. I was young in terms of my spiritual identity. I was young in terms of my emotional identity. I was young in terms of my social identity as well. I was young in many ways, but as you have heard, I had gotten myself into opportunities of self-betterment. So with my first job at Teleshore Investment Holdings came more money than I expected. I became more successful than I anticipated. I mean, when I took the job, I really was just looking for a job where I could pay my rent. I thought I could buy myself, you know, a little TAS and be able to sustain myself and make sure I've got food and all of this. But what in turn started happening is the more I pushed and the more I did well, the more money I earned. And the TAS was a BMW. You know, and getting by, you know, just paying rent meant I was now able to buy myself my first property. I mean, my first property I was able to buy for myself when I was 22 years old. And I was able to buy myself a townhouse in, you know, in the western suburbs of Johannesburg. So needless to say, I mean, the job that I now had, which I thought would just help me to get by, actually, you know, exposed me to a lot of money, especially for a young man at that time. Now, you know, the money comes, and in terms of my spiritual identity, I'm not really fluent. In terms of my emotional identity, not really that fluent. In terms of my social identity, I'm not really, you know, that fluent. But the money is here. I'm able to buy a house. I'm able to buy an expensive car. And what that led to was really just, you know, a misguided lifestyle, which had obviously the wrong kind of influences. You know, where drugs would be in the picture, sex would be in the picture, alcohol would be in the picture, because of a lack of mentorship at that time, because of a lack of a grounding as well, spiritually, emotionally, culturally, things that I perhaps should have received when I was in my formative years, perhaps maybe from the age of 3 to about 10 years old, things that I should have been taught about what life is going to be like when you start making it, what your lifestyle is going to be like when you start having access to things, and what you need to invest in to make sure that you are able to not only continue, you know, in making that money and growing financially, but that you grow holistically as a man as well. So financial services helped me in the sense that I began, you know, to have access to means at an earlier age, so that I could make all the mistakes quickly while I was still young, and learn from those mistakes quickly as well while I'm still young, because of a lack of mentorship. You know, at a young age, I would then learn by doing all the wrong things. I would learn by making all the mistakes. And only after making those mistakes and doing the wrong things would I learn, okay, this is not what you do. Oh, okay. Then I would then learn by making those moves after trial and error. So the financial services industry helped me to grow and realize all of these things. And through the time now in the peak of my career in financial services, making all of this money is the time when I realized there was a need for me to grow in other aspects of my identity, not just the material and not just the financial. This is when I now, investigated more in understanding, the Christian faith and understanding, the Bible and the teachings of the Bible. And I invested, in researching about Christianity. And Sarahina played, a highly influential role in terms of this aspect, because this is something that she had grown up investing in to a certain extent when she was growing up as well. So it was easier for me to then pick up the Bible, and then just, keep reading, investing in understanding what the Bible is all about, what the content in the Bible is all about, and what that has to do with me. And the more I dug deep into this content, and the more I, opened myself up, to the teachings and the lifestyle that was, promoted by this Bible, the more I began to understand also my spiritual identity as well. The more I realized that there's more to me than the money I make. There's more to me than the numbers that I bring to the business. There's more to me than, because when you focused on the numbers that you are bringing for the organization, you don't even, especially if you're good at it, you don't even recognize that it's a person on the other end of the line. The person becomes a number. The person becomes a mean to your end, instead of that person becoming a person with needs. So I think then my spiritual identity now started teaching me more about how I can do better in terms of my career as well. And the person became less of a number and became a person where I needed to care.
A human being.
It became a being now that I needed to care about, and be slightly more interested in what is it that you are looking for? How is it that I can start helping? I think then, with spiritual identity started coming the purpose, started coming the understanding of why it is that I'm in the space that I am, and how it is that I can use the skills that I have, the exposure that I have, to better the life of somebody else.
Sorry, just before you move there, I think, man, I'm a coach, so I listen to words. I listen to how people put this, and so you have a nice way with words and the ability to speak. And one of the words that you used there, you used the words of mistakes and learning, and it's always a good sign that those words are not separate from one another, because sometimes a person can make a continuous set of mistakes without learning from that. So that's really powerful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just wanted
I think
Sure. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yes. No, sorry about that. I think also the time the time lapse because of the network is not helping. I think I was fortunate, like I said earlier, to have experienced some of these things much earlier than is the general case. And I think, ukuphapha, kundincede experiencing izinto much earlier. And experiencing these things much earlier almost gave me an opening, a window in time where I would then have the opportunity to experience and then make my decisions according to my level of understanding at the time. But then thereafter, receive an opportunity to reflect on the decisions I've taken and the actions I've taken, and analyze these, and see whether these were good, whether these were not good, whether it's good for me to carry on with these, or maybe should I tweak here and there, or should I stop altogether? regarding others. So I think I was fortunate in that sense of starting earlier, so that I could experience and then learn after having experience and decide what's going to help me in preparing myself forward. What do I need to cut off completely? What do I need to adjust just a little bit? And what do I need to leave as is, because it's working for me in my journey of progress? So after about 7 to 8 years in the financial services industry, and now also I was growing in my understanding of who I am as a man, not just as a professional, and understanding who I am as a child of God, not just as a societal being. Then obviously I would now begin to yearn for more knowledge and more understanding, so that I can become more capacitated, you know, in my person, you know, to be able to live life. And at this time now, Sarahina and I were engaged to be married as well. So, and we have a child also that, you know, God has graced us with. So now I'm growing, you know, in my space as a man. I'm no longer just looking at me. I'm no longer just looking out for myself. I'm now looking at a child I've brought into the world. I'm looking at a woman that I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. And I'm looking at myself as a man, and I'm now looking at myself objectively, and I'm saying, do I have what it takes to make sure that I can, you know, propel us forward? As a man, am I able to lead, you know, with integrity? Am I able to lead with vision? Am I able to lead with all that is necessary, you know, so that my home can move forward? And I won't lie, this is the time I realized that I wasn't making the cut. I didn't have everything that is necessary, you know, for me to be a proper man, be a proper husband, and also to leave a lasting and good impression on the soul that I've brought onto the earth. And this is the time now where, you know, a lot of decision making had to take place. This is where I had to sit down and have a meeting with myself and say, where to from here now? You know, you've talked your way into this good relationship and into the heart of this beautiful woman. There's a child which you have made with this woman as well, that is going to be looking up to you from the moment they are born, and is going to learn about the world from observing you, observing your actions, observing the things you say, and making sure that there's no discrepancy between the things you're saying and the things you're doing. And obviously now I had to...
Just before you move, man, this is fascinating stuff, because some of us learn this in our 60s, 70s.
Yes.
These things that you are talking about. Some of us learn in our 50s, when we start to regret a lot. And so I think you must thank God that you had the presence of mind to listen to him and to be able to think through what was happening and what you were moving into. The other thing is that when you came to Johannesburg, you were very young. And Joburg, just like any big city, can make people, in your words, bapape. And such that umda pape unapagati without ever being grounded. Umda pape okoko without ever being grounded. But you say your wife and yourself underwent this process of really where you now found your identity in God. And just tell us a bit more about how did that come about? You know, what happened to be able to really see, because for you to be able to make the impact that you were thinking of making to your wife, to the children, and to other people, you needed something bigger than yourself to do that.
Yes. Yes. So I think you touched on a great point there to say, normally, you know, if you look at the generation before mine, so I'd be saying if you're looking at people who are 50 years and above, a lot of them, yes, a lot of you and your generation made a lot of mistakes because Nani, you didn't get a lot of mentorship before from your predecessors. And a lot of the mistakes that your generation has made have been also through trial and error. You've made mistakes only after to realize that perhaps this is not the way to go if I want to be going this direction. So perhaps I need to relook how I'm doing this. I need to stop that. I need to stop hanging around those people because they give me this kind of mindset that is toxic, that is not going to propel me forward. So I think when you are then coming to my generation, people who are in their 30s and approaching their 40s and in their early 40s, we have learned a lot from observing your generation. There's a lot that you did that we have watched, and we were able to take mental notes whilst observing you to say, perhaps, alcohol is not for me because I've seen what it has done to my father type of situation. Or perhaps this whole business of having many women and not committing to any of them, but instead leaving them with burden, who are now children who are needing to be raised, is not the way to go. Because I've seen how these young children have grown up to be lost in society and be lost in the world and so on. So we've learned a lot from all the wrong that we have witnessed growing up in our neighborhoods, in our communities, and to a very large extent in our homes as well, we were being brought up. So
even in our churches.
Even in our religious spaces, such as churches and so on, this is where we have been exposed to all of these situations. So it then becomes much easier. I say that loosely. It becomes much easier then for you to to realize how you need to do better than what you've witnessed before, because it was so terrible and it was so bad and it was so visible. It was so tangible in how toxic and how destructive it was. It becomes almost automatic that the mind makes itself up and say, I don't want that for myself. I do not want to end up where I'm looking at right now. I need to do better than what I'm seeing here. So you'll find that even in my blogs, even in my book, I open up slightly more about the relationship between my mother and my father. I open up about the character of my mother and the character of my father as well. I open up about this because it influenced me directly when I was a young child. When I was a young child, I was watching their interactions with one another, and I was making decisions about what man I'm going to be when I grow up. I was making decisions about the kind of marriage which I'm going to have when I grow up. And I knew that there were certain things which I'm not going to subscribe to, which are going to lead me to the places where I sometimes saw my parents end up. So there was a negative kind of coaching that happened from the toxic and somewhat destructive circumstances I would find myself in. And that helped in making sure that I decide.
Okay, all right. I know that there is this gap that's happening. So forgive me now and then. I'll chip in.
Yes.
I mean, because you've segued quite nicely into the book itself now, because some of the thoughts and the concepts that we're dealing with are in your book, and unfortunately, I haven't read all of it. But can you share with us a little bit about what do you say about your own observations of what was taking place when you looked at your mother, you look at your dad, and what did you learn from that specifically?
Sure. I mean, I think myself, my mother, and my father should co-author a book together, because
That's a good one.
Because everything that could have gone wrong went wrong in their marriage, and everything that could go right went right in their marriage. I think my parents. When I look at Sarahina and I see a lot of my parents, because my parents are those people who are passionate, extremely fierce and passionate. And there's no doubting their love for one another. It's been evident throughout the years, through the lows and the highs. But my mother and my father are also two distinct and different people. And in terms of their backgrounds, they were raised differently. My mother was raised from a religious setup, you know, a Methodist family, where her father, you know, was very influential, you know, in his locality in terms of the Methodist Church and its influence on society. My father, on the other hand, is raised by a highly traditional Xhosa woman, Ikabagazi. And the way in which he is raised is highly indigenous, and focuses mainly on the teachings, you know, of isiXhosa nesintu. So you couldn't find two people who were, you know, extreme opposites of one another in terms of their backgrounds, such as my mother and my father, which is what led to many discrepancies in their understanding of each other's perspectives, and would cause, you know, this violence and aggression between them from time to time. So if there's anything, one of the things I learned from their relationship is that it's okay to come from different backgrounds. It's okay to be raised differently, but the moment you decide to become one, you have to have a single identity that takes into account the both of you. So the two of you need to get to a level where you say, this is who I am now as Xolisa Mayoyo. Nonkosikazi wami athi, who I am now as Sarahina Mayoyo. And this is what I am bringing onto this vehicle that we are calling marriage. And this is what I'm bringing as well into this vehicle. These are now the things that we will use to propel ourselves moving forward. Anything that is a threat to the progress of this new journey and mission called marriage, we need to discard it. We need to get rid of it and not put it into this vessel. Because this vessel now is going to need capacity from both of us. And we're going to work together now to build this new thing that is moving forward. It is moving forward.
Wow.
No, it's going forward. So whatever it is that we're going to need and require in order for us to build up and build forward, let's pay attention especially to those things, and let's work at making those things better. Whatever is an enemy to progress, let's turn our backs on this thing and never look back. So one of the things that I learned, one of the things that I learned was that it's possible for people to come from different backgrounds, but when they now make the decision to move forward together, they need to be objective, they need to be honest, we need to be serious, and we need to take each other and ourselves seriously and say, okay, nansi inyaniso, before bendingulamntu uthanda ukuhamba ebusuku, perhaps this is not going to help, because as our influencers, they may not necessarily agree with this thing that we're trying to going forward. Omnye umntu may say, perhaps bendikhula kwi-environment where bendi-prejudicial kakhulu, and I wasn't open-minded, and I was not willing to learn things ezintsha, because bendikhula kwi-environment, the only way that's right is this way. And if you do anything other than this way, you are going the wrong way. And then ikwenze ube limited-minded, ungabikho open-minded to experience the very same thing that is good for you in different ways. So this is exactly what Sarahina and I had to go through as well. She had to learn to become more open-minded and understand that goodness can come sometimes from even the least expected places. I also had to learn to say, you know, perhaps because I had grown up too liberal and I made up my own mind and could decide what to do without approaching or asking anybody, but perhaps it's good maybe sometimes for me to discipline myself and put myself under an authority that would make sure that spiritually I grow as well, so that as a man I can expand and evolve.
Wow. Sure. We've moved so fast into the meat of this thing, and I don't know where the time went. And I'm looking, I see there that Vito Fanti is here. Khila, good to see you, Mkrobam. And if I miss your name, I have nothing against you. It's just that I'm looking at the people. I see Tando Melani is here or was here, and he sent us a nice thing here. We want to appreciate this fact that you are all here joining us. And if you've got questions for our speaker here, Xolisa Mayoyo, please feel free. And by the way, Xolisa, in passing, talking about this, I read something which with Usarahina said about you, which was really, really something beautiful about how you are consistently doing things just in the privacy of your home to add so much value to her. And she was just expressing that. I don't know whether it was when, but she was, saying this man has been consistent all this. I think you at the time you were married for 14 years, if I'm not mistaken, or a number of years. Yeah. So I must say, bravo to you. If the madam can go out and give that testimony, that means that behind the scenes, you are investing in your marriage. You're actually doing what you are saying we should be doing. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much for acknowledging that. Utiko knew, sometimes I joke when I send out my Facebook post and say, Utiko must have had a side grin. That emoticon, that very cool one with the side grin there. I imagine him sitting on the throne there with a side grin when he looked at Sarahina and myself. And I mean, the moment he paired us together, things started working out very well for us as individuals and as a couple. Because I think perhaps then moving on to what I was saying, after I then resigned, I ended up resigning from the financial services industry after about 8 years of doing well in it. Because now I was, engaged to be married, and we now had a child. And I was looking forward to a much more robust life now that I was, also growing in my spirit. I'd now been baptized in the name of the Lord as well. And I was having a better understanding of who I am. Now I had a better understanding of what, God has to do with me and what I have to do with others around me as well. The Bible helped a lot in shaping that for me, making me realize that there's a God who's far greater than me out there, who is very much interested in me and very much interested in my journey. That also helped me to, make better decisions as a person now, when I'm not just living for the moment, but I'm living for what I could be imparting on others and also imparting on my child, going forward and so on. And there's no journey that made me more awake to the Bible and to the Holy Spirit than the relationship I have with my wife. Because what I realized is that as I was learning more about the character of Christ, I was learning more about my character as a man as well. And when I would look at the character of Christ and his relationship with his bride, the church, I would then begin to see the relationship that I'm meant to be having with my wife as well. So I was now receiving the mentorship that I had yearned for as a young man, the mentorship that I clearly had missed growing up in my adolescent years. I was now receiving this mentorship through the scriptures. And I was realizing, I was now realizing what was the purpose of a man in a relationship with a woman, a purpose of a father, in a relationship with his child or his children. The role of a man with society at large, the impact that one can have not only on his immediate family, but also with society at large. So the Bible played a very good role in shaping that. And sometimes the relationship that God used to teach me about his character and his relationship with humanity was paralleled through my relationship with my wife. When something would happen, my first mind would be to say, be angry, start shouting, start saying, Lena, aikoli, nale, nale, and it's going to stop, and this and that. But then my second mind would say, but Jesus does not. You understand? But then the Holy Scriptures would say something different when I'm looking at how God deals with me. How God deals with me according to his grace, how God deals with me according to his compassion, how God deals with me according to his love. Then for me to come back when I'm now in a situation with my wife, for me to be figure wagging. you know, because now I know how God deals with me in my imperfect state, in my in my state of development, with all the potential I have. I do not see Jesus wagging a finger at me or wagging a law at me saying, you've broken this one, so clearly this is how this thing is going to end. But instead, I saw a God who is always showing up to show me that I can always do better, who's always encouraging me even when I'm down, to say, no, you can get up. We all make mistakes. Now you know better. Do better moving forward. You did not know. But now that you know, do better moving forward, because now you know. So yes, if there's ever a relationship that God used in my life, it's the relationship with my wife.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for that. I can see also you can preach well as well. So, but before I don't want us to get there. I see Usi Vukotela. Mrut, good to see you. Has joined us. Utando Melane, he says, Mfundisi naye, thank you, Xolisa. You're very eloquent. I'd love to read your book. And indeed, he's very, very articulate in putting this thing. Now, tell us about the central, I think you've covered quite a bit that is already in your book, but just tell us about the central idea of your book. What made you write it? And then after that, I'm going to ask the question, because when I was speaking to you, you and we were writing the poster, and I wrote a journey to self-discovery. You corrected me and you said, please say a journey to self-rediscovery. So the two levels to this question. The first one is about the central idea of the book and where it comes from. And secondly, about the difference between self-discovery and self-rediscovery.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, no, I love those ones, because now we're really getting to the nitty-gritty of what that has to do with anybody else. All right. Yes. So when I wrote the book, you know, the cover, when you look at the cover of my book, you see me seated almost at the corner of a wall. So almost defensive, almost looking out to see what's coming at me. And the reason why I do that is just so that you can see how, as a man, as you are growing up, or as an adult, as you are growing up, sometimes it can feel as though the world is coming at you, because all of these things are coming at you, whether it's financial obligations, it's your relationship with your family, it's your relationship with your colleagues, it's your relationship with other people, it's where you're falling short, and all of these. And sometimes it can feel like you are pressed at a corner and everything is coming, you know, at you. And you get to a point where you're like, okay, let me so that I can deal with you as you come. But then on the very same cover, you see a picture of my father there on the right, on the top right of the book. And like there I'm referencing the relationship between the previous generation, the current generation, and the generation to come. So who I am today is highly influenced by where I come from, is highly influenced by the experiences that I have been through, and is also influenced heavily by the decisions that I've taken. So I see myself sometimes at a corner and the world is coming at me full force and I have to deal with that. But then sometimes do I have what it takes, the capacity to deal with all of the things that life is going to throw at me? And it's going to depend on a couple of things. One of the things is going to depend, I have a toxic and unfinished relationship with my past. I will find myself not adequately capacitated to deal with the present, and not adequately capacitated to prepare a good future for myself. Yes. If there are things in my life that come from when I was a child, that come from when I was much younger, that come from when I was still traveling to where I have now arrived, and if I have not dealt with these things objectively, if I have not sat down with myself and asked myself which ones are still relevant, which ones must go, Which ones do I need to do better regarding? And which ones are doing well? If I don't do that meeting with myself of self-evaluation, then I'm not going to be adequately capacitated to deal with life. Life is ever evolving. Life is ever changing. If 2020 and 2021 is anything to go by, that is now happening at a much more rapid pace than what we were used to in the past. And if I have an unhealthy relationship with my past, where I'm not the master in that relationship, I'm going to find myself falling short in today's world. So when I wrote the book, I narrate the story of myself from as early as I can remember, I think from about 5 years old. And I speak about the things that took place during that time that influenced me as a young boy. These things influenced me as a young boy and caused me to make certain decisions as a young boy in terms of my relationship with God, in terms of my relationship with myself, in terms of my relationships with other people, be it family, be it a girlfriend, be it colleague, and what have you. So I narrate a story of myself growing up, but I focus on how I viewed myself, because the way in which you see yourself is very important, because it will influence, it will educate, it will sort of speak to how you see the world. So the way, if I look at myself as a victim, the way in which I look at the world will be that the world is an oppressor, because I'm a victim and things are always happening to me, and these things which are always happening to me are not always working out for my good. So then the world becomes a monster because I am a victim. So the world is always out to get me because I'm always defensive and afraid.
You're small, you're powerless.
Absolutely. So the way in which I wrote the book is I start from a perspective of a 5-year-old person. And I show you through experiences how perspective will never remain stagnant, how perspective will always evolve and grow over time, because now I am exposed to more than what I was before in the beginning. Now I have academic education. Now I have spiritual education. Now I have social education, and have all these experiences that are coming to me to teach me more about life, and to teach me more about myself, and to teach me more about God even. So now in my book, as you go from chapter 1, you are seeing an identity and the way in which a person is looking at himself evolving, and as such the perspective of that person also growing and evolving over time with all the opportunities and the exposures and the experiences that I have been through. As you then read the book moving forward, you are able to see that I can never say I am who I am today based on what somebody did to me when I was a certain age, or when I was still on the journey of being to where I was. Instead, I look at that experience and many other experiences as the opportunities that God gave me for me to learn more about Him and to learn more about myself, so that I can do better next time when I experience similar things. That is why I named the perspective. It is for us as individuals. It is us as families. It is us as institutions to evolve, to be up to speed and up to date with the problems and the challenges that we are seeing ourselves facing today, and not to always be looking back and say, but Mina, this happened to me when I was, this was done to me when I was. Yes, we understand. And yes, we agree. And perhaps we have been through similar as well. But now with exposure, with opportunities, with self-investment, we now make the choices ourselves to decide what our future looks like. Not based on what somebody else did to us, but based on what we were able to do with those experiences that we were afforded. Yes, they may not have felt good at the time.
In other words, what you are saying is that we are not we're not prisoners of a past that was carved by others and other situations, but we are creators of our present, using some of the past, but also looking forward.
Absolutely. I mean, we all need to be in a space where we become masters of our own narratives. We become the drivers of our own vessels. I mean, even if you look at us as a Black society, and it is one of the things that you mentioned when you were introducing, to say, I'm very much passionate about financial literacy, especially for the Black population. Because the Black population can say, but yes, apartheid happened, that we were disenfranchised, the doors were closed to us, we didn't have access to all of these tools because we were the discarded of society. And you are absolutely right. I mean, it was systematic and it happened for generations, right? But then here we are now. We have access to all of these, and all of these now are at our fingertips. You can't say to me, I'm not going to invest in my own future and the future of my children because I grew up around apartheid. As true and as painful as it was that you went through that period, that painful period, it simply just won't do. It simply is not enough for you to say, I can apartheid dala, and then ndafumana opportunity yokufunda kwafuneka ndisebenzele umlungu and so on, ndaphelela apha ke mntanam and ndiphelele apho. It's just not enough. You are failing your children when you are doing that. You are failing the generations that are to follow when you are doing that. But there are people also who went through apartheid, who went through all of that hardship, who said, even though kungekho mnandi, we're going to invest in ourselves so that we can create a better picture and paint a better picture for the ones we have brought into this world, so that they can do better than we did and create even a better picture, or paint a better picture for the future generations after them. So the reason behind looking at identity and looking at how you specifically view yourself as a person and how imperative that is in making sure that you have a progressive future for yourself and for your kin. It's important for you to be able to know who you are, understand who you are, but have the correct knowledge and understanding of who that is, so that you can create something that will stand forever.
Wow.
So that is,
I
think, the first part of the
just before you move,
that is the first part of the question.
We've got to digest this and really mull at it, because it feels like there are 2 or 3 programs just with you on loan. Because I want us to now talk about your definition of significance, because you seem in your definition to associate success with things like material gains, being the middle class, having a better salary, getting to a new bigger office and all of that. But you still say that's not it. We still have to strive for significance. And I want you to speak about what is your understanding of significance vis-a-vis success, in terms of how we define it as success. But before you do that, I'd like to acknowledge the people that are here. I see Moitlamo Moketse, good to see you. I'm so happy that you joined us. Nagunaleti, Aunali, good to see you. Molope Serudu, good to see you there. And but Kukona also Unondumiso Ndumi Miataza. She is another author that I really, really enjoyed listening to. I think she wrote a book which is called But Divorce, or something of that nature. And I want her to come to come and tell us about that on this program. But I listened to her and I read up on some of the stuff that she writes on her blog. And Nundumi Sundumi, I think you're such a great person, and we can learn. I think I wanted just to say that before we move. Now, let's talk about this idea of success and significance and impact.
And unfortunately, I think then it will also help me also to respond to the second part of your previous question, where we deal about the discovery, versus rediscovery.
That's correct.
So when I look at what I viewed as success in my early 20s up until perhaps my early, let's say my late 20s. Success for me at that time was very much external and was very much material. I looked at success as the German engineered vehicle car I was driving. I looked at it as owning a property in the suburbs, in the western suburbs of Johannesburg. I looked at it as, always having people over at my house because of the things that I was able to make available in my house so that people could be there. I looked at it, purely from an egotistical and superficial and external point of view. Then came my spiritual awakening and came my spiritual identity. My idea of success was now expanded from what I could provide financially and materially and externally to who I was in my heart, and to whom I was, in relation to the people that God had put around me. And now success became more about a paycheck. It became more about a position in corporate. It became more about, what I could buy, whether it was friendships or anything else that money can buy. And it became more about who I was inside, who I was to the core or at the core of who I am.
At the core,
at the core of who I am. So now I needed to be wealthy in my spirit before I became wealthy in my physical form, which meant that I now had to invest in who I was according to Christ before I invested in who I am according to myself and according to my wife and according to my kid and according to other people. So now success versus significance started, becoming a theme in my journey of progress, because now I would understand myself according to who I am to God, and then who I am to the people that are closest to me, and then to everybody else that the Lord will allow me to reach. So now success is not about what car I'm driving necessarily. Success is not about where I'm staying necessarily in that suburb, in that estate. Success is not about the people who are hanging around me and the cars they drive and the estates they live in, and the posts that they put out there on social media necessarily. Now success becomes about how best I can express the love that God has shown me throughout my life, with all the mistakes that I've made, with all the things that I've done, yet for him to still want to call me as one of his own, yet to invest in me, make sure that I do better than I did yesterday. So now significance becomes an important theme now in my journey of progress, because now it's not just about making money, but it's how I'm making the money. It's not just about driving, that big car, but it's about how I got that big car. Did I trample on the heads of people to get to the top? Or did I get to the top with people holding hands and us being on top? Before I met the Lord, before I met Christ, my idea of success was me doing whatever it takes for me to get to the top. What that normally means is that people are a means to your end.
Are experiencing you. Yeah. Sure.
Absolutely. But then now, with the knowledge of who I am, according to the Spirit, according to God's idea of who I am, my relationship with people is totally different. People are no longer a means for me to get to the top, but people are allies that I hold hands with. And I not only see myself at the top now, but I see myself with a lot of other people being at the top, because now the top is not so small where only I can fit anymore, but it's huge enough for all of us to. So I think that's the best way in which I can, express my understanding of what success is versus significance. And also touching on that self-discovery and self-rediscovery, I think that's exactly where the rediscovery took place, because now I had reached those spaces that I dreamt of as a young boy, that I'd always aspired to when I was much younger. And I had those things which I always thought were the things I needed for me to become fulfilled. I had them, but I was not fulfilled. I was not complete. I was not happy. And I think rediscovery had to take place. I mean, if we must go there, I resigned from my job. I stopped altogether. And I actually went on a sabbatical and went on a journey of understanding who I was. I went back home. I spent more time with my father. I asked him questions about himself. I needed to understand who he was. What was his journey? What did it take for him to get to where he is? What are the mountains he had to face?
Yes.
What was it that he was struggling with? What was he fighting? So that I can understand why sometimes he beat my mom. So that I can understand sometimes why he wasn't there when I needed him. So that I can understand sometimes why he didn't invest in some of the things which I found myself not having when I was ready to become a husband and a father. Then I realized, no, it's a short. I think there are some things that I need to go and get, which I didn't get in the past before I can go on this journey. So I took some time. I took some years, and I went back to the past and said, okay, I'm only going to make this visit to the past once, but it's going to be objective because this visit to the past is going to be for me to get all the stuff I didn't get. After I get all of that stuff, I'm closing the door to the past. All the past is just a reference for education. I'm moving forward. That is now self-rediscovery. Because when I thought I knew who I was and I thought I knew what I wanted and I got it, I realized that that's not who I am and that's not what I want. And then I had to go through the process of rediscovering who I am. And spirituality played a role in this one to get there.
Wow.
Yeah.
When I call this, I think, man, there's a statement which I read when I was quite young and which made a huge change. I think it was written by, a guy called Socrates. Where he says, an unexamined life, if I quote it, an unexamined life is not worth living. And I think what you are saying is basically going through examining, and you come across as you speak as if you are conscious, you are present, your self-awareness is amazing. As I said to you, I'm a coach, a trained coach, and those things, it's things that we train to pick up. It comes out very, very strongly that you're not just doing things, you're not just moving on with life. It seems as if you are present and you are self-aware, and that gives you this emotional intelligence, which enables you to be aware about your own impact on yourself and others. And I think for us as men in particular, and men at your age, in the 30s and so on, to get that, how do we make men particularly? I think it can be applicable to everyone, but we're now talking in regard to men, because you went to your father because your father carries your identity. How can we generate and really build this ability to be self-aware, to be conscious, to be serious about life?
It's a very important question, Mhle. I think I'm happy about this question more than any other. If those who are with us have missed anything that we've said, I'm happy to answer this particular question. Because this is exactly where I think our next conversation should go from, because this is where we start talking now solutions. And we're no longer just diagnosing the issue, but now we're saying where to from here. What do we do? Because Xolisa Mayoyo, yes, we agree with many of the things that you're talking about, and we can relate. And some of us could write even better books than yours because we've been through worse things than you have been. But at the end of the day, we need to get to a point where we say, so where to from now? Where do we go now to make sure that obviously we're going on the right path and we're building the right things for ourselves moving forward. And I think the best place to look with anybody is yourself. The first point of contact when you are looking to understand whether you're on the right path or not is yourself. You look at yourself now and you say, I am a 40-year-old man. Am I happy with my spiritual identity currently? Or could more be done in that regard? Then you look also at your mental state and you say, am I happy with the manner in which I reason? Am I happy with the way in which my mind influences me? When I'm dealing with myself, mentally, am I right with myself? Mentally, am I right when I'm dealing with my wife, when I'm dealing with my children, when I'm dealing with my colleagues and all the people that are within my space? Am I at par with a 40-year-old man in 2021 in my mental space? Then you also look at all the other aspects of your identity as well, emotionally. Am I emotionally sound and intelligent? Because that is going to influence the way in which I respond to life. If I am emotionally incapacitated, I will deal with everything as though it's against me. I will deal with anger. I will deal with defense. I will deal with aggression. I will deal with violence, because perhaps the best way to progress is to push through situations, use your aggression, use your strength, because that's how perhaps our predecessors mostly dealt with stuff. It was through force, it was through power, it was through aggression, not so much reason. So the first point of contact will always be yourself. And here it's very important, you don't play games with yourself. You become very honest. You do not lie to yourself. You become very honest and say, perhaps spiritually, I'm cheating. I'm not investing as much as I should. In my mental space, perhaps I should cut down on those channels and perhaps pick up a book and read up on things that help the mind to become healthy and help the mind to become a conducive environment for progress. Then also emotionally, perhaps I should, select people who know how to reason, who know how to respond to pressure situations, whose emotional intelligence is able to help them in their marriages, so that when the wife or the spouse is saying this, it's not taken as something else. It doesn't lead to places that it shouldn't go. Perhaps I should hang around people who know how to deal with their emotions and know how to respond to high pressure situations. So even though I won't be able to, because of time, I won't be able to answer your full question. I think
I know.
the first point of contact for this will always be myself. And when I'm having those moments of introspection and self-examination, it's very crucial that I become honest with myself so that I can genuinely and authentically make progress. I think all the other solutions, they follow after I've done that exercise with myself of just finding out exactly. It's like going to a medical doctor and saying, just do a whole checkup, check my lungs, check my kidneys, check my heart, check everything, make sure everything is performing as it should. Why can't you do that with your entire holistic identity as well? Why can't you look at your spiritual life and say, where am I? Why can't you look at your mental life and say, am I putting the right things in here? Am I cultivating the right environment here? And then also look at your emotional intelligence. Then you can look at your financial as well and say, am I investing in the right things, or am I still getting stuck making loans, unable to pay these loans off year in, year out, and I'm not making any genuine progress in terms of my finances? And any other department that you can open it up, self-examine, do what needs to be done, get better, move forward.
Wow. Sure. What a way, man. In fact, you were talking about these areas of life. We use what we call a life wheel, which actually has all these elements of life. A person has to identify those life will issues. It could be relationships. It could be all of that. It's really something that's amazing. And another concept that you shared, which I think as we're winding down, which was very powerful. You said it earlier, and then you put more flesh into it now. The meeting with myself. The meeting with myself. That can be so difficult to actually really cut out all the distractions and really look inside to really assess where you are. It could be, how did you handle that?
I was fortunate when I'm Mhlekazi to be courageous, because it happened at the most awkward time. It happened at the time when I was really doing well, in terms of my finances. Like I said earlier, I was up for a promotion. My employer, had just paid for me to study further, so that I can obviously earn more money in my field and do better than just business development at the time. And this is the time where, I was also getting married. I had a newborn baby. And at the same time, I obviously was going through all of these changes. And in my case, I thank God for the courage He gave me not to take a shortcut, because I literally put everything down. I put everything down. There was nothing glamorous about it, because I lost everything.
Sure.
I lost everything. But it was I was worth it. I was worth the new person I was going to become. So turning my back on my accomplishments at that time was the most painful thing ever to have done. But I knew that when God is done with me, not only am I going to get all of these things back, but I'm going to be a master of everything that I own and everything that I am in charge of. It's not going to be the other way around. I'm not going to be owned by money. I'm not going to be owned by a career. I'm not going to be owned by the perception of that people may have of me. All of these things, let's say it in biblical terms, all of these things are going to be under my feet. But I have to go through. I have to go through this transition. I have to, and it takes some sacrificing. It takes some humility. It takes, some trust as well in God that these things will be returned to me. But when these things are returned to me, I am going to be the one who owns them. They are not going to own me. And I think that was what was important. It was important. Yes, it was very important that I do well in terms of my career, but my career does not define who I am. It was very important. Yes, I still drive those German engineered vehicles, but I do not find my definition and my identity in them. And yes, I work with people as I did before, but now the end goal is not to make myself go higher at their expense, is to go higher with them.
Them.
So
wow. What a perspective change.
Very important. Yes, it was very important. So I gave everything up. I gave up the career. I stopped. I resigned. I left. Then I took time to understand who I am and understand what I need in my arsenal before I go at this thing again, so that I do not keep falling and getting up and falling and getting up and falling.
Wow. That's beautiful, my brother.
Cognizant of who I am and cognizant of where I'm going, and be the master of my own journey.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate this time, and I feel this hour and a half just sped fast. But it would be a travesty if I don't ask you, on behalf of our viewers, to tell us how people they can get hold of your book. And I need to actually get a copy myself, so I will be in touch with you. But how can we get a copy of your book? And secondly, you must tell Sarahina that when she goes and preaches somewhere, I once listened to her recently preaching in was it Ginsberg or something? Great, powerful sermon. And
Yes.
when she goes preaching, she must also give you a chance to preach, because I think you are also a great preacher.
Thank you so much, sir. I take that as a compliment.
It is.
I'm not a big fan, particularly of preaching.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
I think we hear a lot of sermons.
Yeah.
And I think we are exposed to a lot of knowledge. However, I think there is a stronger demand for teachers so that the knowledge can be turned into understanding as well.
Yeah.
Because preaching is good and it does serve its purpose in reviving us, in motivating us, and in causing us to dream and causing us to see the future. But I think teaching can go a long way in empowering us to understanding the content that is being preached so that we can apply it on a daily basis to our lives and see the progress in our various situations. So she can bring me along and she can preach, it's okay. But then after she preaches, perhaps then give me a bit more time to teach so that we can, preach and teach at the same time, create knowledge and understanding.
Yes.
So that there can be wisdom. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
All right. How do people get your
book?
My
book is available on my platform. Yeah, my book can be found on my platform. You can go to my website directly, www.imxolisa.com. If you go to the website, www.imxolisa.com, you'll be able to get the book online. You'll be able to select the courier option that you prefer, and then we'll make sure that you get the book within the prescribed time. So everything is done there. You can just go online, click on buying the book online, and everything will be facilitated online there through email, and you'll have access to your book. If you'd like to speak to me directly and you want to get the book directly from me, you can phone me directly on my number. It is 061 04 04 704. 061 04 04 704. You can speak to me directly. You can send me a WhatsApp there, and I can have your details directly and make sure that you get the book. So those are the two places. Or you can DM me on any social media platform, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. You can send me a private message and we'll take it on from there. So either you talk to me directly on my socials or on WhatsApp, or you phone me on my number, or you go on my website and you'll have access to the book.
Wow. There are so many ways in which you can get the book. There is now no longer any excuse. Guys, I think it's very important that, especially on this platform, we're promoting that as Black people, we write. I mean, in the past, it used to be rare to even speak to someone who has written a book, to even see them. Now we've got people, we've got Omiataza, we've got Omayoyo, we've got others, Beauty, Kotela, she's just written a book called Andizi. I'm looking forward to it. I listened to snippets when they were, when Alvin and the others were sort of outlining it. So people, we are now moving into a new dynamic where we can no longer say, as you were saying, it was apartheid, it was that. We have the skills now, we have the capacity now. And how else do we develop it than to read what other people have done? So I encourage you to read Xolisa's book and to buy other books as well, and to make sure that we can move forward. Xolisa, man, I want to thank you so much for this time. The time that you took out to really empower us. I feel empowered, and I'm going to reach out to you because I need my own copy of the book.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I've ever since you and I got in touch, I won't lie, I stalked you. I went to your YouTube channel. I went to all of and wanted to just get an understanding, of what your platform is about and what the intention behind it is. And I was very much impressed. I won't lie to you. I was very much impressed. I was very happy, which is why I responded almost immediately and said, yes, definitely. I'd definitely love to be there, because these are the spaces that our people really need, so that we can grow ourselves and we can grow each other. Nobody else is responsible for us. We are our own responsibility. If there's anything that we're lacking in our life, we are the ones we have been waiting for. So there is nobody else who is going to do it for us. We are going to do it together. We're going to do it ourselves.
Wow. Beautiful. What a way to end. I really want to thank you, man, for that, and want to thank all the people that joined us. Ndutu Papu, I see you, Sisi. Good to see you. And whoever else I may have missed, please accept my apology. But at this point, we're going to call it a day. We've covered quite a lot of ground. And I'd like to encourage all of you, those who are watching and listening to this, to subscribe to the Kulati Coaching and Consulting YouTube channel. Subscribe there, because we deal with these matters. Really, the driving force behind this is this people development, people empowerment in various areas of life, spiritually, family, personal development, whatever area of life that you're talking about, marriage and family. All those things are important so that we can be that which God wants us to be on this earth. So many of us are so looking forward to heaven that we have become miserable here on earth and irrelevant here now. Yet God has given us this place so that we can make it better. So, Mayoyo, thank you so much, Mprobam, and God bless you and your family. I'll be in touch with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and thank you to everybody that has joined us today.
All right. Take good care. Bye-bye, guys. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. I really appreciate your time. Those of you who have managed to join us, thank you. Join us again as we're going to send out other programs. We may take a bit of time during the December period. It's been a hectic year, but you'll get to hear if there's another program coming up. Thank you so much, man. All the best and good afternoon. Sure. All right. Really appreciate all the people that have joined on both platforms, YouTube, as well as right here on Facebook. I really appreciate this time that you took. Please tell others as well that we are doing things here that are supposed to improve. Get your younger brothers, get your younger sisters, get people at work, send them these videos so that they can like and they can receive and be improved and be bettered. But more importantly, we need to understand that we are created by God who loves us, and he wants us to be better people that we can be. And so how else do we do that apart from sharing with one another? Thank you so much. Lee, Kabulo, Nkululo, Mpala, indeed, inspirational material. Thank you so much. That's what we're here to do, is to inspire, is to inform, to transform and educate one another. Thank you. I'm going to call it an afternoon. Please enjoy the rest of it. All the best.